This is Scaling Unicorns, episode 2. I'm Bill Paul, and today we're going to talk about the concept of perspective. Having perspective is something that was harped on to me by one of my very first mentors in startups. Actually, the person responsible for me getting started within the startup organization, Robert Alvarez, the current CFO of BigCommerce. He used to talk a lot about, you gotta have perspective, and for a long time it was great. He's one of those leaders that always did a very, very good job of teaching. And I would say for any leader within organizations and individuals, you have to look for perspective all the time. If your leader, your boss, is not able to give you greater perspective, then it's going to be very difficult for you to learn. And if you're not getting that perspective, to me it feels like you're losing out on a lot of the opportunities, the best opportunities that should come with working within a startup ecosystem or organization. And I guess where I'll start is the concept of, our most common perspective is that of the individual. I'd say every day it's very common for us to just think about ourselves, the very most important person in our mind. And it's such an incredibly valuable skill to be able to think outside the box and to have perspective for more than just yourself. Have perspective about the organization as a whole, and really have perspective for your customers as well as your fellow startup employees. And one of the most important lessons I learned very early on in working for startups is this concept that everyone has a boss. Too often, people within startups think about the Googles, the Facebooks, they think about these founders that made billions of dollars, and they always are focused on, okay, what's it like to be the CEO or one of these executives, and how that executive has it great. They have it made, right? They're very smart, they're creative, they got the organization off the ground. But when I think about a person and everyone having a boss, I realize that the CEO actually is responsible for more than just their individual boss. Their boss is the customers. They also have to report to investors, and they have to report to all the employees. So it's a huge responsibility. And I find that regardless of the level you're in, if you're able to think about those around you and the perspective of your CEO, then ultimately you're going to be able to think back to the perspective of customers, investors, and where the organization is heading. And ultimately, whenever I'm looking to join a startup, one of the big focuses, and something I believe every startup or potential startup employee has to think about, is growth. I'll talk about this in future episodes, startup equity and what it means to have ownership in the organization. But when that's something that's very important to you, this ownership of the org, you have to think about, how do we get the org to not just be what it is today and not just benefit me as the individual, but how do I benefit, or how do I help the rest of everyone in our startup grow to the next level? Because when you have startup equity, that equity grows as the organization and the valuation grows. And so I'll talk a lot more in future episodes also around valuation and how to influence that. But today, just wanted to get back to this concept of perspective. Look for it every single day. Think about where the organization is going and try to contribute on a level outside of yourself. Because even if you're doing things just for your fellows, and that help you're providing is able to help this growth, you're going to be able to make a massive impact, and ultimately it's all going to come back in far greater dividends to you. So hope everyone likes this video. Happy Friday. Please comment, let me know how we can continue to get better content on the channel, and have a wonderful day.